able to upload the data to the cloud at some stage. Navigation highlighting, so you'll see when I show you some screenshots from the app, but it's quite a complex app, so the inspectors need to know where they were because they'll go have lunch and come back and not remember where they're up to, and be able to resume inspections for that purpose as well.
So I just see 800.
800.
800, I'm like,
Yeah.
it's probably
Yeah, it's yeah. So I've just got a few screenshots. So this is the home screen. So that I've got 4 different inspection types based on the asset type. If there's any completed inspections and they're within, if they're connected to the network, they can upload and they can resume their inspections from over there on the right-hand side. There's an example data entry screen. So this is the navigation highlighting. So if they're currently on us, so they've got a category here and then a subcategory. So if they're currently on a category or a subcategory, it's orange. If they've been there before, it's green. Just your standard controls in the app. So your drop downs, text fields, where attachment control from a form, save buttons, and then just when you navigate away from the screen, it also calls the save button. Here's another example data entry screen. So a lot of screens look like this. So heaps of yes, no radio buttons. So they start out blank just so they can be sure they've actually selected an option and not missed an option. A few text fields through the app and a few drop downs.
Thomas, what type of device are they using?
Probably either a Surface or an Android tablet. I don't think they've decided yet, but yeah, a tablet.
Decent size screen.
Yeah. They reckon they're big enough, but that might change. It might need to be bigger radio buttons and larger font. In terms of just managing it?
Yeah, in terms of offline.
I'll show you later on. It might make more sense later on. Yeah. Cool. So for the offline functionality, so this is how I dealt with it. So when you create an inspection object, so on that home screen, new inspection, it'll place your inspection into a collection and then immediately save that collection to your device. So yeah, I wanted to make sure that they didn't lose any data at all. When they're updating those inspection objects, it'll do a patch to that collection. And it's going to update a context variable. That context variable is just for keeping the state of your object, being able to access that in the screens, as you go back and forth. I'll talk about why it's a context variable shortly. And then, as soon as that's done, save that collection to the device storage. So if anything happens, the Power App crashes, they should have the data and memory still. So then syncing with the cloud. So when they're connected, there's sort of a few things we have to keep synchronized. So all the drop downs in the app, obviously they need a data source when you're offline. So there's just a lookup values collection that's synchronized from a SharePoint list. So if they need to add any new ones, they can add them, and next time they're connected, it'll refresh it. There's the inspection objects themselves. So any that have been completed, they'll get uploaded to the cloud. And then I've got an errors object, so that I think it's pretty new functionality. There's an app on error, so you can catch any unhandled errors. So just in case something's going wrong when they're offline, I'm capturing those and feeding them back into the cloud. So yeah, this is sort of how I do it. Just clear the collection of lookup values if you're connected. It just brings in the SharePoint data, and then it just saves those straight away. If any are completed, it'll try and upload them. So that's just calling a flow. The reason I did that was so it was just one call. You're not having to patch. I think we've got about 20 SharePoint lists. So you don't want to be trying to patch those and have one fail and then it'd be a nightmare. If that succeeds, it removes the completed inspections and clears the error log, clears the error collection. And as soon as it's done that, it saves those collections back to the device so you know it's been updated. Cool, so the data upload to the cloud. So yeah, this kind of shows how many tables are involved. So each one of these green box, or SharePoint list, each green box is sort of a object that's part of an inspection. So if you're inspecting a power pole, then you'll have your cross arms and your conductors and your insulators and so each one of those is like an object. And then each object I just had a SharePoint list for. Yeah, I don't know whether it'll probably handle being able to stay in SharePoint lists if they build like a Power BI report on top, but depends how they haven't figured out how they're going to interrogate the data yet, so we're not sure whether it'll stay like that or not.
Once you do like a parent-child setup, so all those lists there, they've got like an ID that comes through.
Yeah. So in the app, they just related. Well, it's just one collection with a parent object. Talk about it a little bit later. But I did have a whole bunch of collections initially. They were all related with just a GUID. Once it gets into the flow, it'll log the parent inspection list, and that ID is just used as a foreign key in all the other lists. So yeah, that's the flow. So just a little bit of error handling. It pretty much just alerts us if it fails. So go and see what went wrong. It's the primary key stuff. So yeah, performance issues. So it's pretty slow to edit as it is, but it was a lot worse. So I just have one global inspection object that I was referencing in all the screens. And I found it just couldn't resolve some of the errors. So if you had a conflict in your data schema, it just couldn't resolve them. So what I ended up doing was using context variables. So I'd just get a piece of that data object that I needed out of the collection and use a context variable. And I'm not sure, but I theorized that way it only had to check everything in that screen for conflicts rather than across the whole app. That made a huge difference. Yeah, saving multiple collections. So yeah, when I started, each of those objects had its own collection, and it was taking about 20 seconds to save it to storage. So it just wasn't going to work. So I tried surrounding it with a concurrent function, and it was actually slower, which was bizarre. But so I've reduced the collection count right down, just have a collection for your inspection objects, and then just nested all those other properties, those other objects properties underneath. So yeah, I think there's just errors. There's one for the navigation to save the state of the navigation and the inspections themselves. So some of the tips and tricks, this was quite a big project, so it allowed me to sort of learn quite a few of the functionalities and Power Apps I hadn't used before. So components was a big one. So this was awesome because we actually changed the data schema about halfway through, and because I'd used components for the navigation, it meant just changing it in one place rather than, I think there's about 20 screens in the app. So having to go into, you're just opening yourself up to introducing bugs all over the place. So that was awesome. I still love Excel. Will I know will ridicule me for it, but just for doing huge amounts of data manipulation, Excel and PowerShell were my friends. So yeah, 800 fields into SharePoint. I wasn't going to do that by manually. So just setting up a a worksheet with the different attributes, so the display name, the text you want in the control, what type of field it is. That allowed me to just do a whole bunch of PowerShell, PnP, PowerShell SharePoint commands to easily create all my SharePoint lists and fields. And then also that gives me my data schema for in the app for both updating the fields and initializing them to begin with. So all I have to do is copy and paste those into my app, and it's done for me. So yeah, keeping all those naming conventions standardized was a big help with that. So this talks about it, like keeping your data schema clean and matching across the app and database. So keeping those field names the same, like the internal names in my SharePoint fields and the names in the data schema, meant I could do this instead of that. So that's a wee trick. I think Reza, first time I saw it was on Reza Durrani's blog, where if you put string and then the list name, it doesn't extend all those properties when updating it or creating an item in a SharePoint list. You can just create the item, and if the scheme is matched, it just works. Find and replace with regex. So this new replace bar in Power Apps, that saved me a lot of time because heaps of those fields were pretty much where heaps of those sections were having to be repeated 4 times, up to 4 times, because if you look at a PowerPoint, it can have up to 4 arms, so they inspect the same thing 4 times. So being able to just copy and paste and then rename stuff with regex was awesome. And I used IM Mancat's branding template app. Yeah, that must have saved me heaps of time with that branding. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Any questions? The recommendations, I think, are 30 to 40 meg, but it differs device to device. So I've tested it on my phone and quite a lot. I don't know how much, but yeah, quite a lot. The photos will be the killer. So I've tested it with quite a few and it's fine. But yeah, I think once they start testing it in the field, there'll be something to monitor.
Do they keep on the phone for a while? Because I know they can only keep on the phone for 30 days, a month.
Oh, is that? I don't know that.
Yeah, so
Right.
So, but
That's something to keep in mind.
And they send it back.
Yeah, that's good to know though, to make sure they do sync it.
So I was wondering your decision to auto sync it back up rather than sometimes you can present like this button that says you've got 5 records that you go offline.
Yeah.
You want to send them up.
Yeah. Yeah, so I've got both just in case they want to sync as they go. But yeah, as soon as the app opens, it'll do the check if it's online completed. Yeah.
Then the device. So if you're offline, you've got Windows. You've got Windows now, so you can have you can used to have Windows devices, so a tablet, if you're offline and run it. Do that now, and you can do Android and iOS. But Android's all cousin. There's like 3 different teams that work on the offline mode at Microsoft, and they talk to each other. Because Android's way out. That's
Right.
so
Yeah.
we're testing one for people that go off deep sea fishing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But they had Android devices and the time to sync was on iOS.
True. True.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I noticed there's things like the scroll bars don't appear in Android on like containers and yeah. Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, would you have a recommendation on device like Apple or Windows if you had to choose? Or
So iOS or Windows. Windows is the most recent, so that's where they put a lot more energy into it.
Right.
iOS has been pretty stable.
Yeah.
You can avoid Android.
Yeah.
But no, I can. So it depends what like company's got, right? They have a fleet of things, and then I guess you test. Just like loading 800 fields into one of those, syncing that, but do it in the field. The biggest thing you ever do is just go out with that engineer into the field and let's just go together and test it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
test it offline mode on your phone and do it in the office, but
Yeah.
we're seeing how they actually work, what they touch.
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
that.
Kind of a reason for more Android is because Android has rugged options. The other two.
Yeah.
So I used to work in heavy industry, and they
Right.
only buy Androids because Androids are unkillable.
Yeah. A lot
cheap.
cheaper. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I remember seeing a Panasonic rugged Windows thing. It was $5,000 sort of.
I used to work in a port, and you could quite literally take the tablet, throw it across the room, nothing's gonna happen. Run it over. Fine.
Did you test it?
Yeah, we did. It was all on fun. Like, come on, wouldn't you?
Still sync, though, don't still sync.
Yeah, they did.
Dynamics people. You could use field service for this.
You can do a lot of it hurts my inside brain because I'm like looking at the SharePoint side of things going, what? Why would you not just put a dynamic frontier on it? Because all the issues, the controls are all there. But I think it's that you know the tools you know. So naturally, if I had the exact same problem, I'll probably design the exact same way, but do everything from the dynamics
Yeah.
back end, from updates, supportability, reporting. But apart from that, it's good.
Does Dynamics apps go well offline?
They go better than Power Apps, what they did, because you don't have to build it scratch. So Power Apps, my understanding is you've got to build all your offline logic. Dynamics comes all the offline logic out of the box. The other big thing that we did quite a big project replacing a Canvas app with Dynamics, because sometimes those Canvas apps can get to the point where it's custom UI, it's custom look and feel, it's custom buttons, and often people don't put designers on them, or especially UX designers. And so you end up looking at these enterprise grade solutions going, when was this made? Because it feels like there's no
Yeah.
curved edges, everything's squared. So again, you know what you know, and you solution it with what you know best. So,
Containers were great for this app because there were so many changes. You know, you don't want to be having to shuffle around your components all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's probably a couple of the screens are over. What's the limit of controls per screen? 700 recommended limit. But yeah, it still runs okay. So
what's got a SharePoint limit? You to 50,000 items per list. That's still
It's 3 million.
15 million.
Yeah, so you've got your data, you've got your views, so you get to index stuff that you can see, but that's only in SharePoint. Yeah, right. So if it, depending on how you're filtering that data, like that's just input.
Yeah.
Just input it in. So whoever's reading the data.
Yeah. And not only that, but the business process off the back of it, like obviously there's a range of triggers that are going to happen, right? Because of an inspection finds a fault, I imagine there's a bunch of automation that's going to create a service to be assigned it to a team, be a field service for the technician to be there with his truck, all the components in it. But I'd almost see this would support it. Like I wouldn't. Canvas apps are very good at being exactly what the technician needs to do and nothing more. So I think it's a great solution for the problem.
yeah, it'll be interesting in the next phase because I can't remember what system they use, but they have their own, ERP system for managing the assets.
Yeah.
So yeah, how we integrate with that, or what we do there will be interesting.
Yeah, because I look at something like field service that does do all the routing. Is there any other teams using two apps? So like, are they using an app to get to the jobs and their job management?
Possibly, yeah.
This is just the inspection.
This is just the inspection, yeah.
So I imagine them probably using something else already to get to the site to manage that service request, to manage all that.
Right.
And I imagine you'll be feeding all this into that for the reporting.
Yeah. When you say does routing or optimization of, true.
Yeah, we had a fun request which was drivers could only turn left.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so we had to build bespoke routing. This is waste management, could only turn left.
Right,
Yeah, because it's more efficient to turn left at lights and not.
yeah.
So we had to extend the route management to enable it to only support all of the left turns.
It's probably safer as well.
Yeah. The most.
Storing 100 miles.
Yeah, but that's why this is so fun, right? The lessons learned from this are going to serve us in all our other projects.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm intrigued to mention the editor not correcting or not, incorrect.
Yeah.
Is that something you come across before?
Yeah, on another big app as well, and you know, we'll say it's gaslighting you, and it is like, you know, sometimes you quit out and come back in, or it just can't reconcile the schema. I found I had to define the schema in the app on start because it's not actually getting the schema from the data source. So even though I was creating the schema later on, I had to define it, otherwise I'd keep running into those issues. And when I had that navigation collection, I just had that as an object inside my inspections collection, and it wouldn't reconcile then either. I wondered if I was nesting too deep in the collection for it, in the object for it. I just don't know. But when I separated that out, yeah, because it's so annoying because you try and fix what you think, you know, is a schema mismatch, and if it does update, it takes like a minute or two to, yeah. So it's just because what I was doing before as well for so those controls we've got 4 repeats. I was just what's the tooling pack where you can unpack your app and you can export it and unpack it, open in VS Code or something. I was doing it that way, but when you brought it back in, then it would you know, introduce other errors. There were properties that when you repacked it would add, but it wouldn't add true or false, so it was blank. So yeah, it was really, I learned a lot